There is a bed in the room, but he refuses to sleep on it because he feels he doesn't deserve it. Instead, he is perfectly happy sleeping on the floor because the floor is soft. This is the first time he has ever been treated like this. Before, he could only sleep on the cold, damp floor of a prison. She was supposed to be a princess above all others. Yet she had been in prison since she was 3 years old. The only education she ever received was how to endure pain, because that was the only way when they drained her divine power. Her screaming wouldn't ruin their mood. Finally, when she turned 18, the girl's power ran dry. She thought she could finally be free, but they wanted to squeeze out every last bit of her value. They offered her as a sacrifice to the Holy Spirit. Death would be fine. That is what she thought, but she was reborn. The girl broke down and hid under the bed. She didn't understand. Why make her go through the pain all over again? However, this life seemed a bit luckier. She saw her mother, who had died early. The girl threw herself into her mother's arms and sobbed, soaking in her mother's love as much as she wanted. But the beautiful dream shattered once more. The knights who were supposed to protect the people burst into her home. They took her away in the most brutal way possible. She knew she had infinite divine power, but no one ever taught her how to use that power. Just as she silently wept and accepted her fate, someone finally came to save her. And yet, her heart was already a wasteland. The painful memories were impossible to forget. As a tiny child, she curled up in the corner of the carriage. She didn't dare look at the scenery outside. She could only keep herself huddled in a ball. The carriage stopped in front of the Duke's mansion. She slowly crawled down with bare feet. She finally saw the long-lost son, but she was shaking with fear. A strange man walked up to her. Just as she was feeling terrified, she noticed the man had a pair of golden cat-like eyes, just like the little demon doll her mom left her. She looked at the man before her. The seemingly luxurious Duke's mansion was nothing more than another gold cage in her eyes. Even the magnificent room gave her no sense of belonging. She curled up in the corner, shivering once again, until the maid serving her walked in. She thought the days of pain were starting again. But when she looked up, there was sweet, soft bread. She hesitated at first because it didn't look like a tool for hitting people. Hearing the maid say it was food, she began to tear up after not eating for days. She quickly grabbed one to stuff in her mouth, but accidentally bumped a water glass. The next second, the glass hit the floor and shattered. She froze. Based on her experience of being jailed at age 3, if you mess up, you have to beg for mercy on your knees. That way, you might get beaten less. But the maid looked at the girl in shock. She could hardly imagine what kind of life the young lady had lived before. The maid quickly grabbed her pleading hands. "My lady, your wounds will open up if you do this." But this only made the little girl misunderstand more. Her pleas became even more desperate. "Please don't hit me. I won't ever do it again." The maid felt her heart breaking. She is only 3, yet she is so practiced at begging for mercy. But no one can truly feel another person's pain. That made the maid feel even worse. If only I could take the pain for the young lady. The maid's tears fell onto the little girl's hand. She didn't care about fixing her clothes, comforting her with all she had. "It's okay, my lady. Everyone accidentally breaks a glass sometimes. So this isn't a mistake at all. No one will hit you here. So it's okay now." The girl was in disbelief. This was the first time she wasn't beaten for making a mistake. The maid quickly called for a doctor to treat the many wounds on her body. But while physical wounds can heal, healing the scars on one's mind is never easy. The maid understands the pain of abuse. She fears it will haunt the young lady for a long time. Even if everyone in the Duke's mansion serves the little princess with all their heart, only those closest to her, her own kin, can truly get her to open up. The Duke also understood what the maid meant. His youngest daughter's mother was the only woman he had ever loved. For that reason alone, he already loved his daughter to his very core. But this love also made him feel utterly ashamed. Why? Why couldn't he save his daughter sooner? For the first time, he felt completely useless. At the same time, he made a vow to love her twice as much from now on. It was mealtime again. The maid carefully placed the food in front of her to ease her fear of breaking another glass. The maid thoughtfully set the food on the floor, but the girl was terrified. She felt like this was all just a beautiful dream. But the physical touch of the bread, the sweet and tangy taste of the strawberry juice, and the woman before her who didn't hit or yell, it all reminded her this was real. The maid kept smiling at her, like a warm little sun. Still, she habitually curled up in the corner, watching everyone through her long bangs. By nighttime, no one had come to disturb her. Hope suddenly began to spark in her heart. Will I get to live here forever? They gave me delicious bread and that sweet and tangy juice. For the first time, she felt what warmth was. But the sound of the door opening a moment later made her jump like a frightened bird. The girl scrambled to sit up, silently mourning that it was finally happening. The dream was over. She trembled and whispered, "Are you going to take me to drain my power now?" Then she slumped to the floor, ready to be taken. "I will be a good girl. I want to live here. I don't want to go back to prison." But she didn't know that the strange man before her was her father. The Duke's heart broke. He called out the girl's name in pain and knelt on one knee. For a moment, the little girl forgot to beg for mercy, staring blankly into her father's eyes. He had cat-like eyes too. The Duke said softly, "Don't worry. I won't torture you. I won't drain your power. And I will never do anything to hurt you. So you don't have to beg me. And one more thing. I will never send you back to that prison. This is your home. No one will hurt you here. I will make you happy here." Sadness and heartache filled the man's cat-like eyes. "You might not believe me yet, but I love you very much." The little girl's eyes widened. "He loves me. That's so strange, because the only people who love me are my parents." But what the girl didn't know was that it wasn't just this man who loved her. At that moment, 2 boys had just stepped off a carriage. Hearing the butler say their sister was back, the 2 instantly perked up. "Did our sister come back with Mom?" The butler sighed. "Madam passed away 2 years ago, and the little lady was taken away back then." She endured 2 years of torture before coming home. The two brothers' eyes went wide. It turned out their mother had sacrificed herself to wipe out the evil, securing the peace everyone enjoyed now. Yet people had kidnapped her daughter and drained the mystical power she inherited. Until the Duke finally rescued her. The two brothers clenched their fists. They were going to hunt those bastards down. Meanwhile, the maid brought over a delicious meal. The girl sniffed it cautiously, then began to eat ravenously. But hearing a knock at the door, she dropped her precious food and quickly curled herself back into a ball. The maid immediately comforted her. "No one will take you away." The maid stepped outside and gave the butler a piece of her mind. "In while the young lady is eating. She thought you were here to drain her power," and stopped halfway through her meal. The butler guiltily admitted his mistake and then explained why he had come. "These are gifts for the little sister from the young master and lady." The maid couldn't help but feel happy for the girl. Returning to the room, the maid found the girl frozen still. Her stomach was growling, but she didn't dare touch her favorite bread. The maid quickly brought out the gifts. "Look at this." The girl's face lit up instantly. "This is the doll Mama made." She couldn't help but crawl forward, wanting a closer look at the cat plushies. The maid handed them to her. "My lady, you actually have an older brother and sister." The girl's eyes widened in confusion. The maid gently explained that though they have different mothers, all three are the Duke's children. "So you are real siblings." The little one tilted her head. "Is there another mother staying with father then?" The maid patiently explained, "No. The Duke and that lady separated a long time ago. Your mother only came into the Duke's life much later. As for these two dolls, your mother made them for your brother and sister." Even though Lady Vigro wasn't very good with a needle, she still put her heart into making these toys for them. The girl stared at the two cats blankly. Mother had made a cat plushie for her too, but it was left behind in the house where she was taken. She remembered how heartbroken she was then. Looking at the cat's eyes, the little one couldn't help but think about how father had beautiful cat-like eyes too. The maid guided her gently. "My lady, now you are the precious sister of Lady Veilrand and Master Roan." What is a sister? She didn't quite understand. But if Mama made cats for them too, does that mean brother and sister aren't bad people? Clutching the two scruffy little cats, she gave a smile that finally felt safe. But things couldn't go on like this forever. The next day, the Duke brought in the most famous doctor in the empire. But the doctor had his own rules. He wouldn't treat noble ladies, yet he spent his own money to build hospitals for commoners. The Duke sought him out. Only a doctor this kind could truly reach his daughter's shattered heart. The doctor refused him to his face. His colleague nearby broke into a cold sweat. How could he talk back to the Duke like that? But the man didn't care about that. Make your decision after you see the patient yourself. But when the doctor saw the girl huddled in the corner, he was instantly ashamed of his previous arrogance. The child's condition was terrible. His hand tightened around his medical bag. The doctor stepped forward to introduce himself, but the girl just recoiled again. She was terrified of this stranger. The doctor said kindly, "My name is way too long. You can just call me Eve." "Look at that. We have the same nickname. Your name is Eve too, right?" The doctor tried to catch her attention on purpose. The familiar nickname reminded her of her mother. The doctor pressed on. "So can I call you Eve?" The little girl finally reacted. She nodded. The doctor's smile grew even brighter. "To think my name is the same as little Eve. I'm so happy. It makes me feel loved." The doctor was using his own feelings to tell her that being loved is a happy thing. Sure enough, the girl asked timidly, "Being loved?" She didn't quite understand. The doctor told her, "Just like how your mother loves you." Just when it seemed she was opening up, the next second, the little girl held out her hand and said, "You can take my power. I have my kitty now, so I can endure it." The doctor continued patiently, "I won't take your power. Not tomorrow, not the next day. Not ever will I take your power." Power. The girl's jaw dropped in shock. "But everyone wants my power." Without exception, the doctor asked if Eve's mother was like that, too. Did she take away Eve's power? The girl shook her head hard. The doctor replied with a smile, "I'm just like your mother. I don't need your power. I'll love you just as she did." The doctor chose to stay and treat the little girl. He looked at Eve with a grin. "So, let's play together today." The girl was a bit surprised. Everyone else just waits on her, but only this doctor is willing to look up at her. The girl let her guard down and nodded. The maid nearby had a huge smile on her face. She hoped the young lady would get better like this. After the session, the doctor let out a long sigh. Even though he was mentally prepared, the reality was far worse than he imagined. She wasn't just small for her age. Her body was covered in wounds and bruises. Even a stray child wouldn't suffer such trauma. The usually calm doctor couldn't help but curse under his breath. Thinking about his earlier arrogance, he felt like a real jerk. But the priority now was to pack his bags and move into the mansion. However, before leaving, he had to tell the Duke something very important. The Duke rushed to his daughter's room upon hearing it. The moment the door opened, the little girl whispered, "Are you here to take my power?" The Duke's heart was bleeding. It seemed the doctor was right. She doesn't realize yet that I am her father. The doctor had also warned him that just saying you won't take her power isn't enough. What matters right now is making her believe that you will never hurt her, rather than just offering hollow comfort. Following the doctor's orders, the Duke looked at the child. "Ivana, I promise you, from now on, no one can drain your power or hurt you. I will protect you." The girl was on the verge of a breakdown. People before it had made the same promise. She hugged her two little cat plushies tight. But the Duke suddenly remembered. The doctor said she likes hearing stories about her mother. So he said patiently, "This room was once your mother's room." Sure enough, Ivana immediately stood up, her face practically glowing with interest. The Duke continued, "Your mother loved looking at the view from this window. I hope you can live here in the same room where she lived." The girl asked innocently, "Why?" The girl looked up, staring at the Duke with those clean eyes. "Because you are my daughter." She didn't quite grasp what a daughter was, but she understood the emotion behind it, so she nodded, agreeing to live in that room. The Duke smiled as well. "You can use anything in the room, because these all belong to your mother." The girl was stunned for a moment. "Do you want to try sleeping in the bed tonight?" That sentence finally made her leave the corner. She wanted to touch the bed her mother slept in, but she was so tiny that climbing up was a struggle. Her face turned red from the effort. The Duke stepped forward to help. The girl began to shake with fear. Every unintentional touch reminded her of the past. She was terrified. Just then, she saw that her father's hand held a ring just like her mother's. Instantly, she wanted to see it more clearly. She actually stepped forward to touch his hand. She said mother wore it every day, so it felt like it had her warmth. It felt so warm. The Duke's eyes widened. "It's because I don't need your power." The girl's jaw dropped in shock. "But everyone wants my power." Without exception, the doctor asked if Eve's mother was like that, too. Did she take away Eve's power? The girl shook her head hard. The doctor replied with a smile, "I'm just like your mother. I don't need your power. I'll love you just as she did." The doctor chose to stay and treat the little girl. He looked at Eve with a grin. "So, let's play together today." The girl was a bit surprised. Everyone else just waits on her, but only this doctor is willing to look up at her. The girl let her guard down and nodded. The maid nearby had a huge smile on her face. She hoped the young lady would get better like this. After the session, the doctor let out a long sigh. Even though he was mentally prepared, the reality was far worse than he imagined. She wasn't just small for her age. Her body was covered in wounds and bruises. Even a stray child wouldn't suffer such trauma. The usually calm doctor couldn't help but curse under his breath. Thinking about his earlier arrogance, he felt like a real jerk. But the priority now was to pack his bags and move into the mansion. However, before leaving, he had to tell the Duke something very important. The Duke rushed to his daughter's room upon hearing it. The moment the door opened, the little girl whispered, "Are you here to take my power?" The Duke's heart was bleeding. It seemed the doctor was right. She doesn't realize yet that I am her father. The doctor had also warned him that just saying you won't take her power isn't enough. What matters right now is making her believe that you will never hurt her, rather than just offering hollow comfort. Following the doctor's orders, the Duke looked at the child. "Ivana, I promise you, from now on, no one can drain your power or hurt you. I will protect you." The girl was on the verge of a breakdown. People before it had made the same promise. She hugged her two little cat plushies tight. But the Duke suddenly remembered. The doctor said she likes hearing stories about her mother. So he said patiently, "This room was once your mother's room." Sure enough, Ivana immediately stood up, her face practically glowing with interest. The Duke continued, "Your mother loved looking at the view from this window. I hope you can live here in the same room where she lived." The girl asked innocently, "Why?" The girl looked up, staring at the Duke with those clean eyes. "Because you are my daughter." She didn't quite grasp what a daughter was, but she understood the emotion behind it, so she nodded, agreeing to live in that room. The Duke smiled as well. "You can use anything in the room, because these all belong to your mother." The girl was stunned for a moment. "Do you want to try sleeping in the bed tonight?" That sentence finally made her leave the corner. She wanted to touch the bed her mother slept in, but she was so tiny that climbing up was a struggle. Her face turned red from the effort. The Duke stepped forward to help. The girl began to shake with fear. Every unintentional touch reminded her of the past. She was terrified. Just then, she saw that her father's hand held a ring just like her mother's. Instantly, she wanted to see it more clearly. She actually stepped forward to touch his hand. She said mother wore it every day, so it felt like it had her warmth. It felt so warm. The Duke's eyes widened. They quickly lowered their voices. "It's our fault. We just felt happy seeing you hold the cat plushies we gave you." The little sister didn't understand what happy meant. She repeated the words several times. The brother and sister picked up the dolls from the floor. They said with a smile, "You're the sister we've been waiting for. We gave you these gifts because that will never happen makes us so happy." The twins' gentle efforts to please her made her drop her guard in an instant. Clutching the returned cats, the little kitten-like girl thanked them with flushed cheeks. Eve was like a shy little cat. She was unwilling to approach a moment ago, but now she was showing her soft belly. The siblings' hearts melted instantly. The little one asked, a bit puzzled, "But why were you waiting for me?" The twins smiled. "Because you are our family." By the time the doctor arrived, the three children were already sitting close together. Faced with the doctor's urging, the twins were completely reluctant to leave. "My lady," the doctor asked with a grin, "should I go and inform was purely the Duke? To give power like to mice seeing a cat." They scrambled to get away, but they didn't forget to promise, "We'll be back." The doctor was also happy for little Eve. "They seem to like you very much. Do you like them too?" The little one hugged her doll and didn't answer, but her blushing face said it all. The doctor was pleased. He knelt down and carefully checked her hand. With such a severe injury, even an adult wouldn't be able to stop crying. Yet at 5 years old, she was indifferent, which meant the pain of having her power drained was far greater than these physical wounds. The doctor's voice choked up. After putting down the tweezers, he spoke to Eve with solemn determination. "We will protect you. Seeing that the little one didn't understand protection, the doctor explained seriously, your father, your brother and sister, me, and everyone in the Duke's mansion will protect you just like your mother did and never let you be hurt again. Eve was a little stunned. Then she remembered what her siblings had said. She asked insistently, because we are family? The doctor felt his efforts these past days were finally worth it. He almost burst into tears. The power in your body belongs only to you. Only you get to decide its use. This was different from what the bad people in Eve memory used to say. Those villains always said the value of her existence. After the doctor left, Ivana stared blankly at her own hands. My power. That night, she dreamed of a sphere of light. That familiar warmth reminded her of her mother. She fell into a deep sleep. The father watched the girl's smiling face and couldn't help but smile back. This is the first time I've seen you smile. He gently stroked her small head. You have a resilient life, just like your mother. The Duke carefully carried his daughter to the bed, sitting by her side to watch her. Early the next morning, Ivana woke up to her father's greeting. Did you sleep well? Are you hungry? Eve nodded honestly, and her father, as if by magic, brought her favorite bread. Food the moment she woke up, and she could even eat it in bed. Eve felt so happy, but as the father watched her, something seemed wrong. Does your hand not hurt? The little one was focused on eating. She shook her head and said it didn't hurt. Her father asked heart-wrenchingly, is that why you took off the bandage? Eve apologized instinctively. The Duke asked, suppressing his pain, if you don't like it, you can tell me. I won't be angry. Everyone has things they dislike. Eve listened with a mix of understanding. For the first time, she spoke her true feelings. I just don't feel very comfortable. The Duke was often injured himself, so he understood that kind of discomfort, but he still explained patiently to his daughter. But if you don't wear the bandages, the wounds will heal slowly and might even start to hurt more. He found it very strange. But I never feel pain. The Duke's brow furrowed. He gently cupped her small hands in his. In truth, there isn't a single wound on you that doesn't hurt. It's only because your previous injuries were so agonizing that you've become numb to this pain. He lowered his head and kissed her hand. Don't worry, I will always be by your side to protect you. I won't let you get hurt ever again. The pain of the wounds will disappear one day, and it vanishes even faster when shared with others. He felt so odd. She clearly hadn't felt much just a moment ago, but now she felt waves of stinging pain. After her father said he would share her wounds and suffering, she felt as if her heart had been bitten. The sensation was so strange that she reached out to touch his face. Will you stay with me? Her father smiled and replied, I will, for as long as you need me. Eve didn't feel the pain in her wounds now. She thought her father must have taken her suffering away. After being surrounded by everyone's love for a while, she gradually stopped acting like a startled bird. The doctor believed that before long, they could move on to physical contact or bathing. The girl was now proactively exploring the world, like taking a bite out of a ball. What is this? It doesn't taste good at all. The doctor struggled to hold back laughter nearby. How could she be so cute? She then taught Ivana step by step how to play. The little one wanted to try it herself, but the ball wouldn't listen to her. Is the ball alive? The doctor was full of spirit. Then let's catch it together. The two of them played for ages, until the doctor was exhausted. My lady, let's take a break. The girl sat down obediently. Doctor, what is the world outside like? If you're curious, why don't you go see for yourself? Is the world gray? The doctor was a bit confused. That's just how the world I see looks. The doctor froze. She felt it was necessary to tell the Duke about this. The doctor went to find him. Do you need something? I want to ask about the child's mother. The Duke's expression darkened immediately. The two sat across from each other. What do you want to ask? Can the Great Spirit foresee the future? Foresight is the power of a god. Even if her mother was the Great Spirit, she was not a god. The doctor looked very conflicted. What if the mother intentionally didn't tell you? The Duke was stunned, but then a surge of cold anger erupted. If she could foresee the future, why would she just watch as Eve endured all that pain? The doctor hurried to explain. The lady just told me that the world she sees isn't just dark, but that the entire world is shrouded by monsters. But those things happened a long time ago. The Duke still didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was those who wanted her power who told her that. The doctor wanted to say more, but the Duke cut her off. He couldn't believe the mother would just stand by while her daughter suffered. He then asked about the girl's progress. Hearing that she could now play like a normal child, the Duke gave a relieved smile. He didn't want to dwell on thoughts of her mother anymore. He just wanted to be a good father. Meanwhile, the girl had no idea what was being discussed. She was having a wonderful time playing with her siblings. Quick, catch it. It got away again. The twins were playing along carefully with their sister. Let's teach it a lesson then. Eve was very serious, treating her siblings' words like military orders. She caught the ball with a grim expression, announcing it to them as if she'd caught a criminal. The two were generous with their praise. After a whole afternoon, the older kids realized their stamina was actually lower than their sisters. The three of them lay on the ground resting. The sister suddenly suggested, let's play with water this time. Eve had been home for a long time, but she was still covered in dust. To respect her trauma, they hadn't given her a proper bath yet. The sister felt the time was right. As Eve was starting to accept everything about her home, she told her sister, we'll fill the big tub with lots of water and play in it together. Eve remembered her childhood when her mother used to place her in. She figured it wouldn't be much different, so she agreed. The older sister excitedly rang the bell, telling her personal maid to prep the bath. The maid was deeply moved by the order. The young lady was finally going to bathe. It looked like she was doing much better. He brought the clothes to the bathroom, but when the little one saw what was inside, his pupils dilated instantly. His eyes were filled with despair and the pain of betrayal. He slumped to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. No one knew why he suddenly snapped. Everyone stepped forward, worried and wanting to help, but he dodged them with a quick move. "You're all liars. So this is where you hid it. Didn't you say you didn't need my power?" He shed tears of agony. "This isn't my mother's room at all, is it? Is this where you all stole my mother's face?" He pointed at the white bathtub in the middle of the room, screaming hysterically. "Was it on that altar that you tortured my mother?" The siblings finally realized it was the marble bathtub's fault. Exactly. The altars used for sacrifices were always white. So, the little sister mistook the marble tub for an altar. What a total mess. But the child couldn't hear a word. He knelt on the ground, curling into a tight ball. He refused to listen to any explanations. "You clearly said no one would take my power. You said you'd protect me. It hurts. It hurts so much." He even felt his old wounds throbbing with pain. The older sister watched this scene, tearing up in empathy. Why couldn't she have been more thoughtful? The girl was on the verge of a breakdown. Hearing the child's agonizing screams, the old father rushed in and pulled his daughter into his arms. He kept holding her hand, trying to comfort her. "Please, wake up." But she couldn't hear anything anymore. Shedding tears of hopelessness, she muttered under her breath, "If you want my power, why bother playing with my feelings? Just take it. Please, just let this cruel nightmare end." The father's eyes widened, not knowing how to respond. He was in pain too. Those who hurt his daughter, he would hunt them to the ends of the earth. He'd make them pay 100-fold. The gentle Duke suddenly turned fierce. He controlled his emotions as much as possible, asking the maid and his eldest daughter to explain exactly what happened. After realizing it was a misunderstanding, the Duke held his youngest, shouting to snap her out of her grief. "Look closely at what's in front of you. Look at it." The Duke grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to face her greatest fear. Then he drew his sword and, clang, shattered the tub. He reduced the entire marble bathtub to small stones. The massive crash startled the crying girl. She sat there blankly, looking at her father. The tall man announced in a deep voice, "Look, I've destroyed the altar. The thing that tortured you is nothing more than this." Then the Duke spoke gently to her. "You are fully capable of destroying it too." She looked up in disbelief. "Can I really destroy it?" The Duke said confidently, "Of course. Your mother and I can both do it. So you can too." She kept repeating, "I can really do it?" The pain that haunted her for 2 lifetimes. The Duke urged her even more gently, "I promise you, until you can use your own power to destroy that altar, I will teach you everything about swordsmanship. So, do not be afraid." The little girl finally stepped out from the shadows. She hugged the Duke, calling him father over and over. Though she was crying, they were tears of relief. With the misunderstanding cleared, she could finally take her bath. The pink bubbles were a fascinating new sight for her. The maid thought she was so adorable, not forgetting to remind her, "Be careful, bubbles in your eyes will sting. You've got to keep your eyes closed." The little one, now all cleaned up, had her hair back to its original state, but she was still a bit shy, hiding behind the maid. When the father saw his clean daughter, his jaw dropped in shock. She looked exactly like her mother. The Duke couldn't help but pat her little head. "Maybe you could try drying the lady's hair yourself." The Duke was a bit surprised. The girl was acting bashful too, while the maid just stood there with a huge grin. A moment later, the Duke knelt down, and the girl instinctively took his hand. As he led her along, he intended to have her sit in a chair, but he noticed the fear in his daughter's eyes. He offered to carry her up instead, adding cautiously, "If you don't like this, just let me know." It warmed her heart. How did he know what I was thinking, even though I didn't say a word? Fighting back her fear, she sat on the chair and said, "I'm afraid I'll fall off." The father didn't think she was being a coward. Instead, he considerately picked her up. "You won't fall as long as I'm holding you." She looked at her father, touched. "Am I not heavy?" The Duke used to hold her mother like this all the time. He told his daughter not to worry. Looking at herself in the mirror, her thin cheeks were finally starting to fill out. She noticed her father's hair was different from hers, the color of the night, and those striking cat-like eyes. She stared so intently that the Duke misunderstood. "Are you feeling okay?" She shook her head vigorously. "No, I just think your eyes are as beautiful as a kitten's, just like the doll my mother made for me." The Duke looked at the crudely made doll, thinking she might have known all along. All those tigers she had made. Warm tears unconsciously rolled down his face. When night fell, she drifted off to sleep. The Duke returned to his own room. Even his loyal guard couldn't help but marvel. "The young lady looks exactly like her mother. It's truly stunning." The Duke shrugged. She was his daughter, after all. Wasn't that only natural? The guard was surprised because the royal blood flowing through the Duke isn't something easily diluted. Even though the twins didn't inherit the power, they still had the pitch-black hair and the golden eyes. What the guard didn't say out loud was, "Why? Why does she have none of her father's royal traits?" The Duke knew exactly what the guard was thinking. His expression darkened instantly. "It's because Rosier has such a powerful life force. Being a part of the divine, it was strong enough to overshadow the royal lineage. So she takes entirely after her mother." The Duke rubbed his chin in deep thought. "If you're thinking this way, Others will surely have their suspicions too. They might even covet the divine power within her. You must stay by her side at all times. Not a single thing can go wrong. He went back to her room, touching her forehead as she slept. He made a silent vow. No matter what happens, I will protect you. To save humanity, the woman chose to sacrifice herself, but her own daughter was taken by humans. In her tiny state, she endured subhuman torture every single day. Even after being rescued from the dungeon by her father, the girl thought it was just a new place to be tortured. It wasn't until she felt her family's warmth again that she tentatively took her first step forward. She finally agreed to a physical exam. But the situation was worse than the doctor imagined. Not only were the scars horrific, she even had multiple fractures. Yet the little girl didn't cry out once. It was as if these injuries had been with her forever. The doctor struggled to hide his rage. He couldn't imagine what those monsters did to her. Feel that same exact pain. Walking out of the bedroom, the doctor ran into her brother and sister. The twins looked like they'd done something wrong, keeping their heads down and whispering, "How is she? Is she still hurting? Is she okay now?" The doctor immediately realized the twins thought yesterday's incident was entirely their fault, but everyone could clearly see how much they adored their little sister. Despite the heavy mood, the doctor told them that her condition had stabilized a lot. And one more thing, what happened yesterday wasn't because of you two. As long as that marble tub was in the house, this was bound to happen eventually. The older sister was still full of guilt. But if I hadn't asked to play with the water, the doctor cut her off. No? In fact, it's better that it happened now. If this had happened later on, maybe even the Duke himself couldn't have calmed her down. Since it happened early on, we were able to resolve it quickly. The twins checked with him cautiously. The doctor gave a sincere smile. I would never lie about something like this. His Grace didn't just assign me to her side for no reason. The doctor didn't want the siblings to drift apart. He told the twins that through it all, she never blamed them once. The brother pouted, feeling her pain deeply. She's endured so much suffering, hasn't she? The doctor admitted it. We can't even imagine the pain she went through. That's why we need to shower her with love, to help her forget that pain sooner. Go on and now. The bond between siblings is something only you two can give her. The twins suddenly found their courage, held hands, and walked into the room. The looks on their faces were practically identical. She really is our little sister. She looks so cute now that she's clean. I almost didn't recognize her. The little one tilted her head and asked, "No ball today?" The doctor was right. She never blamed them, and they finally felt at peace. The three of them started playing and messing around. By the time the father brought dinner, her high energy made him crack a smile too. Then, using the excuse of not interrupting her dinner, he chased away the twins who were hogging his daughter. Before leaving, the siblings patted her little head. "We'll always be here to play with you." The father brought out a small tray table. "Time to eat. If we put the plate on the floor, your neck and back will hurt." Eating at the table is much easier. Staring at the spaghetti bolognese in front of her, she asked hesitantly, "What is this? The red stuff? Is it strawberry?" Her dad explained it to her and personally fed her a bite. "This stuff smells really good." She took a big bite, and wow, it was delicious. Then she took a sip of her favorite strawberry juice. So good. Dad gave her a macaron next. She'd never tasted anything like this. She finished it in just a couple of bites. Dad said softly, "This is all for you. No need to rush. Take your time." She looked at the macaron in her hand. "Even if I eat slowly, Father won't be mad, because this meal was prepared just for me." Meanwhile, as they enjoyed this cozy moment, a man was looking over her files, marveling that she had been through so much. He told the butler to get the car ready. "We're going to the Duke's estate right now." The two of them froze. "Your Majesty, you can't. I know I'm the Emperor, but you dare defy my orders?" Even though the Emperor was far away in the capital, he was always thinking about his little niece. Though his heart had already flown to the Duke's territory, he knew if he left, he had to keep his niece's whereabouts a secret for now. As the Emperor, the only thing he could do was write letters to find out how she was doing, or if she'd grown any taller lately. But then, Uncle Emperor had a brilliant idea. If he couldn't be there in person, his gifts certainly could. "Prepare 1,314 carriages full of gifts for my niece." His aide asked, "Your Majesty, what is our budget?" "There is no budget. If it's not enough, open the treasury." The commanders nearly lost it in terror. "You've just taken the throne, and the treasury is already low." But the aide was already busy suggesting gift ideas. Watching them act like children, the commander just shook his head helplessly. Compared to the pain that little girl suffered, this was nothing. Meanwhile, back with little Ivana, eating and sleeping well at her father's house. Along with her treatment, her health had improved significantly. The doctor couldn't help but praise her. "She's such a hard-working little girl." Ivana was thrilled. She landed a perfect jump from the bed, a hint of pride on her face. The doctor cheered her on. But deep down, she was still worried. The little one, how could they correct her misaligned bones? They couldn't just break and reset them again. It was a real headache. She'd have to discuss it with the Duke. Speak of the devil. The Duke opened the door. "Is the session over?" The doctor nodded. Ivana stole a glance at her father, but was too shy to speak. The doctor understood immediately. The little one was like a puppy wanting to be petted. Finally, Ivana took a bold step. She called to her father and opened her arms. The Duke picked her up, patiently asking how her day was. He'd even brought one of her favorite snacks to give them some privacy. The doctor left the room. As the Duke was about to feed her, there was a knock on the door. Feeling Ivana tense up, her father comforted her. "No need to be afraid. It's just your brother and sister." The twins burst in, looking hungry. "Good grief, Dad." They were telling the truth. "How could you keep this from us?" having snack time with Ivana, all by yourself. The Duke testily interrupted the twins. Right in front of their father, they debated how to join in. Soon, everyone had a plate of snacks. A family should be together in harmony. Let's eat together. The brother even stuffed a cookie into her hand, feeling their kindness. Ivana agreed. It was their first time sitting together, but the Duke was still inexplicably annoyed, especially when another knock came at the door. Why are there so many interruptions today? The butler walked in. A letter from the emperor has arrived. No wonder the butler was in such a rush. The family didn't expect that. When Ivana heard emperor, she would familiarly call out his name. She even used his middle name, something only those very close would do. Everyone was stunned, but the father was mostly jealous. How did she know the emperor's name? Ivana didn't know Gerald was the emperor. In her memories, he was just a friend of her mother's, who had visited her when she was little. Her father was skeptical. He asked what Gerald's eyes looked like. Ivana answered without a second thought. His eyes are reddish-yellow, like gemstones. The Duke nodded. Only the imperial family possesses such eyes. Low pupils. It seemed his little girl really had met his brother. The Duke asked, "Do you remember what Gerald said?" Ivana remembered it vividly. Back then, Gerald got angry at her mother, so she got mad and gave him a kick. To her surprise, he actually apologized. Later, he even stayed to play with her. This memory was incredibly precious to the Duke. Since his beloved passed away, he rarely heard anyone speak her name. He figured his wife's passing must have been before his brother took the throne. When Eve saw Gerald back then, he was likely still just the crown prince. The Duke wanted to ask more, but unfortunately, Gerald had only stayed for a short visit. This beautiful memory, however, triggered a deep longing for her mother. She was suddenly overcome with grief. Missing her mother hit her like a freight train. She turned and buried herself in her father's arms, sobbing quietly. Not knowing how to express it, she could only call out her father's name over and over. The Duke didn't press for reasons. He just patiently patted her, whispering, "I'm here." The somber mood made the twins frown, worried by their sister's sudden tears. When there was a knock at the door, the older sister got up to stop them. "Don't come in yet. Our sister is a bit emotional right now." The butler had no choice but to ask her to hand it over. A gift list from the emperor. There were exactly 1,314 carriages full of items, all presents for Ivana. But the older sister was far from impressed. Only 1,314. His Majesty knows whose daughter she is. And this is all he sends? How cheap. The butler was caught in the middle, meekly trying to explain for the emperor. The letter says His Majesty opened the private vault for this. She finally took it seriously and hurried to give it to her father. He gently coaxed his heartbroken little girl. "Gerald sent you some gifts. Do you want to go out and see? Or have them brought in? If you're still scared of the outside world, we don't have to go. It's okay." He held the little one close, not feeling the weight at all. "Whether you're at home or out doing anything else, I will protect you every second. Whenever you're afraid, I'll be right there by your side." Ivana trusted her dad because he had destroyed what she feared most. Her siblings also made a heartfelt promise. "We'll be right there guarding you too. We can destroy any altar for you." The twins dropped to one knee, using a knight's kiss to show their absolute loyalty. Ivana wasn't used to this. She turned away sharply, leaving the twins quite embarrassed. But then she gave a tiny, soft hum of agreement, and the twins nearly jumped through the ceiling. At only 7 years old, she had her bones broken, not as abuse, but as the doctor's way to heal her properly. It was a treatment even adults couldn't stand. Yet she endured it silently, because she wanted to learn swordsmanship. Even with her family supporting her now, she remained persistent. She didn't want to just hide in her father's arms forever. The recovery was painful and slow, but Ivana's health was improving. The scars on her face and body had vanished, and her skin regained its original glow. 3 months passed. She wanted to go for a walk, to soak up some sun in the courtyard. Her father insisted on coming along, but she kept her eyes tightly shut. Her past trauma made her feel like the whole world was gray. Despite her resolve, she was still incredibly nervous. Her father quickly realized something was wrong, but they couldn't go on like this forever. She couldn't stay in her shell, just because she was afraid of getting hurt again. So, he spoke to her with gentle guidance. "Although, I don't know why you think this world is gray, but there will also be beautiful, sunny days." Ivana bravely opened her eyes. The breeze rustled through the green leaves. The gentle scent of fresh grass made her eyes widen. This world, it didn't seem as scary as she thought. Seeing her willingness to reach out and touch the world, the Duke pressed on. Your mother wouldn't have loved this world so much otherwise. Seeing his child slowly open her heart, he felt a surge of emotion, tears glistening in his eyes. "Even if the whole world turns dark and is consumed by fire, I will protect you, just as I promised." The twins, following behind their father, gently, shouted, "If you eat and us and too." Sleep Dad's well. Always saying nice things to Ivana behind our backs, with the care of her 3 family members. Ivana stopped walling off her heart. She was a good child who knew how to be grateful, and she worked hard to heal her wounded spirit. Finally, they crossed the courtyard to the mansion gates. Inside those 1,314 luxury carriages were all the emperor's gifts. But no matter how flashy the gifts were, they couldn't outshine her. To her siblings, she was more precious than any treasure. Ivana's father wore a proud little expression. "That's right. She's my daughter, the daughter of Roger, a name that will go down in the Empire's history." As the children and because she felt protected, the Duke couldn't help but think of Roger, a strong and beautiful woman warrior who constantly pushed herself to survive the late emperor, becoming even more exceptional than the current one. Roger had once healed the Duke's heart too. They were a family that healed one another. Dad walked up to little Ivana, asking if she liked the gifts, while pulling her into a little hug. The plush bunny outfit was fascinating to her. It felt so soft to the touch. The Duke became very cheerful. He told the butler to inspect the gifts and move everything into Ivana's room. But as for the horses, we have enough. Keeping them would just waste space. Send them right back to the emperor. But keep the pumpkin carriage. I assumed that was part of the gift too. The butler was shocked by his master's audacity, but he kept a straight face as usual. Ivana just stared blankly at the adults, not really understanding what they were talking about. All she really understood was that her father's embrace was very warm. They weren't in a rush to go back inside, so they strolled leisurely through the sun-drenched garden. Ivana was curious when she saw the fountain, so her dad set her down. Do you want to dip your feet in the water? It should be nice and cool. Her father rolled up her pant legs as he spoke. He always encouraged her. She found the courage to try. Stepping into the cool water, she felt like she was experiencing one of the happiest feelings in the world. But Dad didn't forget the twins behind him. He teased them. Usually, you guys would be splashing around like crazy. You're being quite patient today. All right, go play. But don't get your clothes wet, or you'll catch a cold. But just then, he noticed her little finger. It didn't look the way a normal person's hand should. Looking closer, there were many signs of bone misalignment on her body. Yet, she looked at him expectantly and said, I want to learn the sword. Hiding his heartache and follow your treatment. I'll personally teach you how to use a sword. When that time comes, you'll be just as amazing as your mother was. The siblings coaxed her too. You'll definitely be even better than us because you're Roger's child. The little one wanted to hear more stories about her mother. Her brother smiled and told her, your mother was the greatest, because she used her sword to destroy the altar you fear most. And you can definitely do it too. Ivana suddenly grew excited. Her wide kitten-like eyes filled with a longing for the sword. Seeing her so determined brought a sense of relief to the Duke. He knew he had to finalize a treatment plan with the doctor soon. Back in her cozy bedroom, it was nearly overflowing with the Emperor's gifts. The little one's eyes went wide. There are so many. The Duke left his little girl in the care of her older brother and sister. Stay with Ivana. Make sure she doesn't get hit by any toys. With that, he headed out. He had to go handle Ivana's medical treatment. Her brother rubbed his shoulder where his father had patted him, marveling at how gentle his father had become. His sister, however, wasn't surprised. He probably learned that from Roger. You know, father wasn't always like this. They looked at their sister with pure adoration as she hugged a giant rabbit tightly, refusing to let go. She found it fascinating that the rabbit was wearing clothes. The twins' hearts were absolutely melting. Their little sister was just too cute. Go ahead and give Mr. Bunny a hug, her brother coaxed. Ivana felt nervous, cautiously approaching Mr. Bunny's arms. Before finally diving in, she sank into its soft, plush belly. Her adorable reaction made her siblings cover their mouths in excitement, afraid their cheering might startle her. But her sister couldn't help but yell out. Her brother gave her a nudge. Quiet down. You're scaring her. The sister knelt on the floor, trembling from holding it in. Meanwhile, the brother took the opportunity to step forward and explain how to play with the toy. See, Mr. Bunny's arms are very soft. He crossed the stuffed animal's arms around Ivana, enveloped by the soft plushie. Ivana couldn't help but say, I'm so happy. Her brother stepped up and hugged her. Noticing her freeze for a second, he asked worriedly, do you not like me hugging you? The little one shook her head vigorously. Her brother beamed with joy, leaving the sister as the only one left out. Did you just hit me on purpose so you could hug her first? Her brother looked quite smug. Victory belongs to the one who seizes the moment. Not wanting to hear his lectures, she lunged forward and hugged her sister. They both tumbled back onto the giant rabbit. Ivana giggled happily, thinking her sister was playing a game. The three of them played without a care in the world. Ivana loved the plushie, snuggling against it. But then she looked at her brother and sister. You won't leave us, will you? They were stunned. Her question was so heart-wrenching. It was a question the twins should have been asking her. Her sister gently stroked Ivana's head. That's exactly what we wanted to say to you. Sister, please don't ever leave us. Let's stay together forever. As her siblings pulled her into a tighter hug, Ivana gave a happy smile. Then let's all live happily together. But behind these happy days was the heavy burden on the father's shoulders. The Duke was worried about his daughter's health, all while performing his duties to stabilize the region. Amidst the chaotic succession, he also had to track down those who had abused Ivana. The butler was a bit concerned. Would such a major move arouse suspicion? But the Duke didn't care. He would do it even if it made them suspicious. Those people couldn't break through his defenses anyway. Just then, there was a knock on the study door. It was Ivana's primary physician. The Duke's expression shifted from stern to worried. I noticed her hands, arms, and the injuries around her shoulders. Will those misaligned bones be hard to treat? Dr. Shelley frowned with concern. Since the young lady is still small and her bones aren't fully formed yet, treatment is possible, but the process will be extremely painful. The Duke rubbed his palms together, growing increasingly anxious. If she endures the pain and the treatment is successful, can she learn swordsmanship later? Dr. Shelley's eyes widened, hardly believing what she was hearing. Another doctor thought it sounded like a fantasy, given the abuse she had suffered. Her emotional wounds hadn't even healed yet, let alone learning the sword. But for the first time, the Duke took a firm stance for her sake. That is her own decision. Dr. Shelley was curious. May I ask why you're so insistent on her learning the sword? It's not just Ivana's wish. I believe it's better for her to have the skills to protect herself, but Dr. Shelley didn't see it that way. Don't you possess the power of a great saint? If she never leaves the Duke's estate, what need is there for swordsmanship? I am serious. The young lady might not even have a talent for it. Eve is lost in thought. But as a father, how can I keep him home forever, even in the name of protection? The Duke said sincerely. Once Eve is no longer afraid of the world, I will not keep him locked in the manor. I will help him adapt. Just as his mother once said, one cannot stay in a comfort zone forever simply for being the guardian of the Great Spirit. One should step out and make a name for themselves. The guardian of the Great Spirit should be a presence respected by all, rather than someone constantly stripped of power. This was the Duke's resolve to change his daughter's fate. Moved by the Duke's sincerity and his lack of a demanding tone, Dr. Shelley decided to go all out to help him. But the previous treatment was only superficial. The real pain was yet to come. To learn swordsmanship, she let the doctor break her arm. This wasn't self-harm. It was to aid the treatment. The girl had been abused since birth, and the bones in her arm were misaligned. Breaking and resetting them was the only cure. She thought she was getting better, but in reality, her heart was still trapped until she saw soldiers in armor, and instantly, her mental defenses collapsed. She was taken away by men like that, who gave her such a painful past. She thought they were coming for her again, until her father appeared. He picked up the suffering Eve, patting her back, telling her not to be afraid. "Father is here." The Duke noticed that Eve's current symptoms were identical to before, collapsing on the ground and twitching. Last time it was an altar-like omen. What was it this time? Feeling his daughter's pain, the Duke became increasingly agitated as Eve slowly emerged from her panic. She whispered to her father, asking why people in iron clothes were here. He finally found the cause. He glared coldly at the armored soldiers. The armor reminded her of those who had tortured her on the altar. The Duke applied the right remedy, patiently explaining to Eve that not everyone in armor is a villain. Your mother wore armor, too. But Eve remained wary. She still didn't believe it. But when she was with me, she never wore it. And neither have you, father. The Duke explained gently. Think back. Mother in the portrait was wearing armor. Let's go see her again. The Duke signaled the knight to withdraw, ensuring he stayed away from his daughter to avoid triggering her again. Standing before the portrait, Eve trembled, afraid to look, until her father spoke in his gentlest tone. See, these iron clothes are called armor. When you are in battle, this armor protects you from dangerous blades. And here is the very armor your mother once wore. Eve finally dared to touch it. Her father added, every knight who wields a sword wears armor. In the future, you will be like us, wearing armor to stay safe. Eve asked one last question. But I've never seen you two wear it. That's because armor is heavy. We don't need it at home. But if I didn't wear it, I might get hurt in battle. You wouldn't want that, right? The little one immediately shook her head. Seeing this, the Duke changed the subject. So, do you want to become strong so you can protect your father? And don't you want to be powerful enough to teach those who hurt you a lesson? Gentle guidance. Eve was no longer afraid of the armor. She began to look directly at the things that used to hurt her. Her father also told her that her brother and sister would also wear armor to stay by her side and defeat enemies. The knot in Eve's heart was finally untied. Wiping away his daughter's tears, the Duke gave Eve a gentle kiss. You must remember, no matter what bad people did to you or what they said, it was never your fault. After saying that, he was about to send her back to her room, while also making a decision. He had to speed up her training. He couldn't protect her forever. Eve must know how to use her own power. Meanwhile, the siblings carefully took care of their little sister, using the softest towel to wipe her tender face. Eve opened her eyes. Her sister's eyes were full of pity, but the little sister suddenly asked them, will you guys wear armor too? The twins were stunned. They hadn't forgotten their father's warning that their sister was afraid of armor. The brother explained cautiously, we aren't wearing it right now because we're too small and the armor is too heavy. But little Eve raised a doubt. That armor is cold and hard. What if it hurts you too? The sister was lost in thought, then cleverly thought of a way. She grabbed her sister's hand to take her for a walk outside. Coming to the spacious backyard, both siblings held Eve's favorite swords. The sharp blades glistened in the sunlight. Eve was so envious. Her sister told her that although swords can hurt people, they can also protect your body, just like armor. Then they demonstrated in front of her. The two kept it controlled, not hurting each other. Their brilliant sparring session made Eve clap with joy. Seeing the time was right, the sister asked Eve, if one of us got hurt and bled, would you still say that? If we were on a battlefield, the enemy would want to take your life. To avoid getting hurt, you absolutely must wear armor. Seeing Eve's conflicted face, the brother then asked her, are you afraid of swords? The little one shook her head vigorously. The brother explained gently, then you don't need to fear armor either, because swords and iron armor both serve the same purpose. Since you aren't afraid of swords, there's no need to fear armor. Eve nodded as if she half understood, but the fear previously engraved in her bones was already slowly fading away. She tried to lift the sword, but she was still too small and didn't have much strength. However, under the loving gaze of her siblings, she also made a resolution. I must eat well and become stronger and stronger. The twins hugged their cute sister tightly and then asked Eve mysteriously, do you want to go visit Father's hall? By the way, there's armor in Father's armory too. Eve suddenly got excited. As soon as she entered, she was attracted by her father's cool black armor. Surprisingly, she didn't feel scared at all. To her, black armor wasn't as scary as silver armor. The twins thought in unison. There is a way to make their sister not afraid. The old father doted on her, yet he was met with a throwing knife. Luckily, it missed by an inch, or he would have been a goner. The girl didn't hold a grudge against her father. She was just in a bad mood and wanted to open a gift to feel better. With her brother and sister's encouragement, she finally moved past her fear of armor. Though she was still a bit afraid of the altar, she wasn't the same as before. She didn't want her family's efforts to go to waste. So she began to unwrap the gift from her uncle Emperor. But it was the Duke. The old father happened to be bringing food, and the blade jabbed deep into the door right next to his face. The Duke's mouth twitched, not knowing what to say for a moment. Eve, who was on the floor, quickly scrambled up. Its father. The Duke held the dinner in one hand and patted his daughter's head with the other. He praised little Eve, calling her a genius. She hasn't even learned how to hold a sword. The little one was over the moon after being praised, but the father thought to himself, last time she found a huge diamond in the gifts, and this time it's a dagger. I wonder if any more dangerous things will show up. Looks like I need to check everything one more time. He handed over the grilled steak to Eve. If you want to use weapons, you need to build up your strength. So come and eat. Little Eve's mouth immediately started watering, but she suddenly realized that she had never seen her father eat. She wanted to have a meal with her father. The Duke was almost moved to tears hearing this. His daughter finally knew how to care about others. He explained gently, "Father and your siblings usually dine separately in the dining room." Eve was very curious after hearing that. That night, all the servants in the Duke's mansion were very nervous. Following the Duke's orders, the massive dining table was replaced with a cozy small one. Once the food was all prepared, so as not to scare the young lady, the servants all went into hiding. The twins were also very happy. Father could no longer hog their sister all to himself. The dining room doors opened. Eve greeted everyone enthusiastically. She was no longer that poor little thing who was afraid to speak. The moment she saw the meat, her eyes practically turned into stars. "This looks so delicious." The usually cold Duke couldn't help but chuckle. "There's plenty of food. Let's take our time." Having never tasted duck before, Eve was dancing with joy. The siblings watched the scene, squinting their eyes in satisfaction. Their sister was just too cute. The whole family was feeding Eve, and the meal was truly delightful. After dinner, they all enjoyed dessert. This time, it was a smoothie that Eve had never tried before. The ice-cold sensation was a brand new experience for the little girl. It melted the moment it hit her mouth. She felt like two little angels were blowing trumpets of happiness in her head. Dad immediately stopped her from wolfing it down. "Eating that much too fast will give you a stomachache." Eve looked like a disappointed puppy, her ears drooping in sadness. Her sister quickly changed the subject to cheer her up. "Eve, don't you have something to tell Father?" The Duke's eyes held a hint of anticipation. Eve told him that she just went to see Father's armor and wasn't scared at all because the color of the armor was the same as Father's hair. The Duke was lost in thought and finally announced calmly, "It seems I'll have to change the color of the entire knight's armor." The twins nodded in agreement. Even if it costs a fortune, it's for their sister, so it doesn't matter. Just for breaking a cup, 3-year-old him would kneel and beg for mercy. But he was actually the master of the Duke's mansion. That was his first day at the mansion. One would have thought the girl would live in the shadow of abuse for the rest of her life. But who would have guessed that in just a month, the girl would already be getting along with everyone in the house? The siblings also spoiled their little sister to death. They were about to have a huge fight over who got to ride horses with her. The sister was a bit confused, but she remembered her sister's cool look during sword practice and directly asked her sister to protect her. Only the brother's feelings got hurt. But the poor brother still dutifully led the horses for his sisters, bringing his sister to the stables. All the animals were extremely friendly with her. This is the power of the guardian of the Great Spirit. Spirit animals, plants, and even all living beings are very drawn to her. These horses are all scrambling to lick Eve's little face. But her sister is a bit worried. Even if her sister's affinity is powerful, it's useless against humans and monsters. The knight on the side is a bit confused. Monsters are beings that defy nature, so that part is understandable. But is it also useless against humans? The brother doesn't think much of it. Think about it. If humans were also affected by this affinity, how could our sister have been abused like that? Thinking of this, the brother gives a mocking smile. Maybe this means humans are just like monsters. The sister waves to her sister with a smile, while whispering a warning. If others find out that she has the power to connect with animals and plants, then the number of people who covet this power will only grow. The knight's expression turns serious. He will do everything he can to protect the young lady. Having had her fill of fun, Eve returns to her room because it is time to play games with the doctor. This is an exercise surely specially designed to test Eve's physical condition. A physical test like every student has to go through. The sit and reach. Little Eve cooperates obediently, but the doctor's sharp eyes notice that Eve is still barefoot. In her nightmare-like memories, the only thing she had was a pair of ragged straw shoes. So Eve has stayed barefoot until now. The maid tried to put shoes on her twice, but she found them uncomfortable and took them off. Accepting new things is not easy, especially for a child who has suffered severe psychological trauma. Every time she completes a task with effort, Shirley gives Eve a lot of praise. This makes the girl very happy. The doctor immediately realizes now is the time. She takes out a handkerchief to wipe away Eve's sweat. "Eve, do you still not like wearing shoes?" The little one doesn't dodge the question, because shoes are heavy and painful. Even Father said, "I don't have to wear them." The doctor smiles and begins a detailed and gentle explanation. "I see. But if Eve never wears shoes, she might get cuts on her feet. While it is safe at home, the outside world might have sharp things like glass shards." Eve suddenly becomes anxious. "Do I have to wear them right now?" She needs some time to adjust. Fortunately, the doctor immediately pats her head to comfort her. "You can take your time to get used to it. Besides, have I ever made Eve do something she hates?" The little girl has known all along that the doctor only has good intentions. The fear in her heart instantly vanishes. replaced by absolute trust. She starts accepting new things faster and faster. The doctor is deeply gratified. She is getting better and better. Then, holding the little one as she clings to her, she says, Eve, let's do some knee-bending exercises this time. This is to prepare Eve to wear shoes soon. Just because the girl likes being barefoot, her father called in the best shoemaker in the empire to custom make a special pair of boots for her. Eve's attention is immediately caught, but she hesitates. If she puts them on, what if her feet become heavy and painful again? She remembers the misery of her feet being bound before. She gives her father a hesitant look, thinking, Father promised me he wouldn't let me be hurt again. With father here, I can do this. The girl quietly cheers herself on. After putting on the soft, furry slippers, not only does she feel no discomfort, but she is also amused by the cute design. I love them, Dad. The Duke's heart lights up too. Then, do you want to wear these shoes to the dining room today? One agreed without hesitation. Holding onto one of her father's fingers, she walked steadily on her own. When the twins saw their sister in slippers, they were more excited about how cute she looked than she was. Soon after, the peaceful Duke's mansion faced its first challenge. A secret letter arrived from the royal family. The emperor likely wanted an update on his young niece. The Duke didn't think much of it at first, but after reading the contents, he immediately grew tense. Cold sweat even broke out on his face. Take a look at this. The butler was curious about what could make his master look so grim. To his surprise, he was so startled the next second his ponytail practically flew up. The Duke leaned forward and asked, if we follow the letter, how much time do we have left? The butler's expression was incredibly strained. Only 2 weeks left. The Duke immediately ordered all his confidants to be summoned. The room was filled with an air of lethal seriousness. In these remaining 2 weeks, we must be fully prepared. Everyone in the mansion knew something big was coming. The twins were even admiring their sister's cuteness. While discussing the arrival of the rainy season, that's when the big event would happen. The little one sat between her brother and sister, asking curiously, what is the rainy season? They explained patiently, it's a grand celebration. But also, everyone in the Duke's territory gets a break then. Father will too. By then, he can play with you all day long. The little girl got excited instantly, suddenly looking forward to the rainy season. I hope that day comes quickly. The twins hugged their adorable sister tightly, and the 3 of them played happily together. Meanwhile, the father was still busy with intense preparations. It turns out the big event they were talking about was little Eve's upcoming birthday. At breakfast the next day, the father noticed something was off with the girl. What's wrong? Is the food not to your liking? The girl looked up with a smile. Dad, you'll spend time with me today, right? After getting a yes from her father, Eve lunged into his arms. Can we go for a walk in the garden? Later, the two headed to the garden, laughing and playing. After all the running around, little Eve was finally tired and plopped down in the gazebo. The father watched her with a smile, noticing her hair was damp with sweat. Eve, how about I help you tie your hair up? The girl happily agreed. After her father finished, she ended up with an incredibly cute ponytail. Seeing her genuine smile, her father thought, as long as you're happy, having the entire mansion celebrate your birthday is no big deal. Eve's 3rd birthday made the whole country busy, not just the Duke's mansion. Even the emperor personally picked a gift. Finally, the big day arrived. Eve put on a princess dress, pushing open the dining room door. She saw shimmering purple sand on the ceiling. It was something she had never seen before. The Duke, watching her closely, couldn't help but ask, do you like it? The little girl nodded vigorously. Everything here is so magical and beautiful. Her father smiled with satisfaction. Now, Eve, do you want to open that door yourself? Following her father's point, Eve walked over. On the other side of the door were her siblings, dressed same color as her. She marveled to herself. So pretty. Then she asked, what are these? They didn't answer, but asked expectantly, do you like them? Actually, as long as it's from her family, Eve would love anything. They're going to love any little outfit, no matter what it is. Followed closely behind, then dropped to one knee, placing a kiss on the back of her hand. Happy birthday. Eve's eyes widened in shock. The next second, it hit her like a distant memory. Oh right, I have a birthday too. Her mother, the only one who ever celebrated it, had passed away before her 3rd birthday. And since her second life began at age 3, she had completely forgotten all about her own birthday. She never expected to receive such blessings now. The Duke held her hand. My dear daughter, your birth is the greatest blessing to us. And today is also the happiest day for a father. Because years ago on this day, it was the day his and his wife's precious daughter was born. Eve began to cry. She felt a pang of sadness in her heart. Before, everyone called her a sacrifice and said she had no other value. But her father told her that her mere existence was enough to make him happy. On such a happy day, she didn't want to cry, but she couldn't hold back the tears. Her father pulled her close, and her siblings hugged her for comfort. Eve felt so warm. Even if she cried, her father wouldn't get angry at her or ignore her. She was always held tightly in her family's embrace. The first gift they prepared for her was already being rolled out. To make this cake, the pastry chef had spent 43 whole days. Her siblings took her hands and said, you have to make a birthday wish. The little one had never made a wish before. With her brother's guidance, she made a silent wish and finally blew out the candles. The 3 siblings hugged, looking like 3 adorable little animals. Next was time for father's gift. This was something Eve's mother had given the Duke as an engagement gift, and now it was back with their daughter. He put it on his daughter personally. May the blessing of the sun be with you. Eve had just stopped crying, but now the tears were welling up again. The sister couldn't stand seeing her cry and quickly interrupted the moment. Wait, We haven't given our gifts yet. How could you make our sister cry already? Though it can't compare to father's gift. We've carefully prepared rabbit slippers and a sun umbrella. Kids will be kids. She was instantly distracted. If only time could stop right at this moment. To make his daughter smile, the father finally revealed his big surprise. A huge table of delicacies was laid out before her. Seeing the food, Eve beamed with joy. Looking at his daughter's radiant smile, the father was dazed. He couldn't describe the rush of emotion, because when he first saw this child, he felt she carried a heavy burden in her heart. Her tiny body was covered in countless scars. But more than the physical injuries, what worried the Duke most was, what if I can never heal the trauma in her heart? If that happened, he would feel it was all his fault for not finding his missing daughter sooner, causing her such pain. This guilt-ridden thought had been torturing him as a father, but seeing his daughter living so resiliently, her sincere, blooming smile finally let him breathe a sigh of relief. He hugged his precious daughter and said with a smile, "Today is your birthday, but father is the one who received a precious gift. Happy birthday, from the bottom of my heart." Then came the long-awaited meal. All the food on this huge table consisted of things Eve had never tasted. The siblings were bickering as usual, not just over a slice of pizza, but a battle of pride. To their surprise, the youngest sister ended up with the prize. Was finally no longer timid. Following her siblings' lead, she had become much more vibrant. The father was also glad Eve had such a good appetite. She was bound to get healthier and stronger. There's cake coming soon, so don't fill up too much. The siblings went to cut the cake for their sister. Looking at the mountain of strawberries, the little one couldn't stop drooling. The soft sponge cake and sweet strawberry jam tasted so good, Eve nearly fainted with joy. Her father gestured toward the far side of the room, where many gift boxes had suddenly appeared. He told her, those were all gifts from the people at the Duke's mansion. Everyone loved Eve dearly. The little girl was stunned. Could people outside my family really like me? Don't they just see me as a sacrifice? But the mountain of gifts gave her the answer. Eve felt truly, deeply happy. She had always felt lucky to have found her family, knowing that without them, no one would love her. Yet she never imagined so many others cared for her too, even those she had never met. Tears fell. But these were tears of gratitude. Her father comforted her gently. Even more people will love you from now on. What he didn't say aloud was, when you can openly accept love, you will no longer fear anyone. By then, his daughter would stand tall on her own strength, becoming an invincible warrior. And so, Eve ended her day wrapped in warmth and happiness. Early the next morning, her siblings couldn't wait to see her. It was time for their sister's height measurement again. But no one could have guessed how unique and even dangerous this family's methods were. Just because his daughter smiled at him, the Duke bought her an entire villa. When she mentioned wanting to experience freedom and the wind, he booked the entire stables. Horses that others saw as wild became docile and sweet in her presence, even competing for her attention. To others, this was excessive spoiling. But the Duke didn't see it that way. He wanted his withdrawn daughter to step outside and see the wonderful world. Using the gifts as an excuse, he began preparing for a short trip to the villa. Eve was a bit scared at first, but knowing her family would be with her, she felt relieved. With them around, nothing bad could happen. The Duke made sure every detail was covered. Her dislocated bone had fully healed. To continue her psychological recovery, he planned to bring the doctor along. The doctor was now entirely focused on Eve. If she shows any sign of discomfort, we return to the mansion immediately. She already treated Eve like her own. She didn't just adore her, she was teaching her. Seeing Eve grow more like her spirited sister, Sherry would feed her treats, watching her chew with puffed out cheeks like a little animal. It made all her efforts feel worth it. Nuzzling Eve's cheek, Sherry couldn't help but gush. "Oh my God, how can you be so cute? Sweet Eve, don't you want to be the Duke's daughter anymore? Be my girl instead." The little one took the doctor's joke seriously. Touching Sherry's face with worry, she said, "I can't. If I disappear, father and mother will be so sad." But Eve didn't want to see the doctor be sad either. She lunged into Sherry's arms to comfort her. "Even if I'm not your daughter, you're the first teacher I've had. I'm so grateful." Eve finally understood what love felt like. The doctor was moved. The little seedling she'd been nurturing had finally begun to grow. She held Ivana tightly. "Thank you too. You mean the world to me." When the session ended, Dr. Sherry took Ivana outside. The little girl saw her siblings and greeted them happily. She didn't know that their casual appearance was a calculated move to be there during her playtime. Watching their sister jump around, the twins sighed like tired adults. Kids just love running around, don't they? They forgot they were kids too. Though by age 8, they were already practicing swordsmanship intensely. With no time for child's play, Eve remembered the lovely horses and headed to the stables. "How are you guys doing? Feeling okay?" If horses could talk, they would have told her just how much they missed her. The siblings watched with pride. As always, their sister was a natural animal magnet. Strangely though, the horses that were gentle with Eve gave the twins the cold shoulder. The sister jokingly raised a fist. "It's like they completely ignore us whenever our sister is around." Just then, their gaze fell on Kai, the most temperamental horse in the stable. He was angrily slamming against his locked door, snorting loudly. He prompted the brother to remark, "Whether she's here or not, Kai is always a hothead." Suddenly, Kai broke through the door and bolted at full speed, charging right toward Eve and the other horses. Watching, The sky was roaring as if Kai could no longer hold back the fire in his heart. He burst through the main gate, charging toward little Ifu, who was surrounded by horses. But the little girl didn't panic. She wasn't hurt at all. Using just one hand, she blocked Kai's massive body. She even gave Kai a serious lecture. You need to behave. I'm not done talking to Jack yet. Plus, we have to go see the visitors later. He huffed and puffed to show his frustration. But Ifu wouldn't budge. No way. You have to stay right here. Otherwise, I won't marry you. Kai hung his head in disappointment. He even shed some sad tears. The twins watched from a distance. Gloating, they thought, this guy, he finally messed up. After the little sister greeted every single horse, the older brother and sister led the horses out. Watching her sister's cool way of mounting a horse, Ifu was completely mesmerized. My sister is so amazing. The older sister didn't hide her feelings. She was thrilled to be praised by her sister. Even Kai, who was being ridden, looked proud. The sister brought her little sister up onto the horse. This height didn't scare her at all. She only smiled wider. Patting the horse's head, she said, I'm counting on you today. The wild horse that couldn't be tamed just a moment ago was now ecstatic. She trusts me. I'm so happy. Yes, I'm the best. The older sister saw Kai's excitement right away. She leaned in and whispered a warning. Calm down, Kai. If you run too fast and make my sister fall off, I will never forgive you. Kai instantly settled down, running across the endless grassland. Little Ifu was having the time of her life. The wind felt cool against her face. She leaned into her sister's arms affectionately. They finally reached their destination, a lake surrounded by a lush forest. It sparkled under the sunlight. Ifu reached out and touched the cool lake water. This was a new sensation she had never experienced before. The brother was initially a bit worried that she might fall in, but the sister told him that being overprotective isn't a good thing. She wanted their sister to explore new things and feel more emotions, because until now, the little sister had never known freedom. The three of them started a happy picnic. But one sentence from the sister made the older siblings freeze in their tracks. One day, the moon will come to consume me, won't it? But even so, she wouldn't be afraid. She had already tasted the true beauty of this world. But the twins didn't think this was a minor matter. They turned around and told their father every single word. The Duke suspected his youngest daughter had the power of foresight, that she knew exactly when she would die. If his hunch was correct, then it was truly tragic. His heart ached for his daughter, who was already prepared to face death. But when Ifu appeared before him, the Duke was as gentle as always. He greeted her, my lovely daughter. How have you been lately? Little Ifu smiled brightly. She even showed off her new shoes. Look, the maid made these shoes for me by hand. Ifu was very excited. Father, from now on, I'll knock before coming in. The knight nearby mentioned that the young lady was at an age to start learning etiquette, but the Duke held his daughter and disagreed. Why should she have to learn those rules? The knight panicked for a second, but he quickly realized something. The twins had never followed etiquette either, and as the daughter of Viro, no one would ever dare to say a bad word about her. During the day, the father and daughter had a warm time, but at night, the Duke drank alone in sorrow. He's an imposing Grand Duke on the surface, but behind the scenes, he's just a softy for his daughter. Just yesterday, the old father was secretly drinking his sorrows away, only because of what he heard from the twins. One day, I will melt into the moonlight. The old father couldn't believe his precious little daughter. She was already prepared to face death, but seeing her smile the next day, he felt a sense of relief compared to all the worries about the future. Making her happy right now was all that mattered. Forget etiquette and rules. If my daughter doesn't want to learn, she won't. He acted casual and invited Ifu for a walk. The two of them walked through the spacious courtyard. Ifu finally snapped out of it. What am I supposed to learn? The Duke patiently explained. Besides learning to read, there are many other things to explore. They will become food for your soul. The more you learn, the more it will help you later. But Ifu didn't get it. Why wouldn't her father let her learn etiquette? As a Duke, he knew all too well. Etiquette isn't for your own good. It's just a show for others. If his daughter was tied down by rules, she'd lose her freedom. Besides, etiquette doesn't help with real life. It's nothing but an invisible shackle, so there was no need to force it. You don't need to care what others think. Ifu was so happy. Her father was the only one who ever told her that. Now that Ifu was brave enough to express herself, the old father felt incredibly proud. Then, just to see her happy, he made a snap decision to go on a picnic. Ifu, who had never been on one, was instantly pumped. But when she heard they wouldn't leave for 2 days, she hung her head in disappointment again, until her father held a cookie to her mouth. Ifu suddenly asked, will there be lots of yummy food on our picnic? Of course, we can even cook some too. The girl gasped and covered her mouth. Father can cook? She was skeptical, because her mother's cooking was a disaster. The Duke felt a bit hurt. Back when they were dating, he was the one who did all the cooking. Seeing his daughter's judgy face, he made up his mind. He had to find a chance to show off his culinary skills in front of her. At 2 a.m. on the day of the picnic, Ifu went to wake her father up. Leaving early meant more time to play. The Duke laughed silently. He gave in and rolled out of bed. The twins were already good to go. Over breakfast, they excitedly explained what camping was and what a tent looked like. Ifu thought long and hard. What did any of that mean? When she saw the fancy pumpkin carriage, she walked around it in total awe. Then she went to say goodbye to her horse friends. Her father picked up the energetic girl. Just as they were about to board, everyone in the manor came out to see them off. Ifu didn't understand what was happening, so her father taught her how to say goodbye. Don't say I'm leaving. Say see you later, because once the picnic is over, we'll be coming back home. At that moment, Ifu realized she finally had a place to return to, so she stopped being shy. She raised her hand high. Everyone was so touched. The cheers wouldn't stop. Ifu was thrilled. The carriage rolled slowly down the road, with her whole family right by her side. They could stop to enjoy the breeze and pick fruit along the way. When night fell, the twins took Ifu to fetch some water. She was fascinated by everything outdoors. Seeing her father, she raised her arms. "I'm hungry, just in time for dinner." Taking the plate from the maid. Sweet vegetables, tender beef, and warm soup. She couldn't stop praising it. Her father sat nearby and breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good. Thanks for the compliment." Ifu was stunned. Such a delicious dinner. Did her father really make this himself? All because of one thing his daughter said. He called on every man in the territory to build a one-of-a-kind castle just for her. "This is my room, and this is my hanging chair. Slow down now. Everything here belongs to you." Watching the little one sprawling on the hanging chair, he scooped her up in one go. "Let me show you the view outside." The little girl, who was a bit annoyed a second ago, instantly changed her tune. It was a massive man-made lake. "Ifu, shall we go boating today?" The little one was a bit confused at first, but her eyes sparkled after hearing her father's explanation. She immediately dragged her father out the door. But even in her rush, she didn't forget to call her brother and sister. In the blink of an eye, they reached the lakeside. Ifu looked at the water and asked earnestly, "Brother, have you ever been in the water?" Unexpectedly, her sister quickly chimed in. "Of course. Does our little Roan want to jump in and catch stars?" Just as the two were about to start bickering, little Ifu asked an incredibly innocent question. "Brother, did you really catch any stars?" The answer was definitely no, but the old father's face turned red beside them. You see, he had promised to pluck the stars for little Ifu. They finally remembered the main event for today. Sitting on a small boat equipped with leather sofas, Ifu hugged her sister nervously. "What should we do? If I fall in, I don't know how to swim." Little Ifu also switched into curious baby mode, looking over here one moment and touching that the next. Our incredibly distinguished Duke had now turned into an old boatman. The daughter said just one thing. "I want to play in the water." The Duke stood up and rowed with all his might. First, it was a burst of speed, then a massive drifting turn. Both lieutenants were breaking a sweat just watching. When night came, the girl snuck out of bed, while the old father, who rowed all day, was fast asleep. She opened the window. Outside was a perfect view of the autumn water meeting the sky. The girl picked up the necklace representing her mother. "Look, isn't it beautiful here?" The necklace began to glow brightly. Holding the necklace was like holding the warm sun in her hands. Early the next morning, the family set off again. Because of Ifu's arrival, all the animals in the forest came to greet them. They even brought her fresh fruit. Thinking about the treats her father would bring back, Ifu started drooling with anticipation. The twins weren't idling either. They wanted to pick mushrooms for a soup later, but they weren't sure if the mushrooms were poisonous. Ifu chimed in. "Those mushrooms are toxic. Brother, sister, don't touch them. The little bunny told me. You can't eat those." She pointed slightly further away. "Those are the ones you can eat. Our Ifu is so smart. Without you, we wouldn't even know which mushrooms were safe." Little Ifu beamed with joy. Just then, the old father happened to return, but looking left and right, there were no treats in sight. The father realized immediately. "Everything I found was sent back to the villa. Let's have a feast tonight, okay?" Seeing his daughter look a bit down, the Duke pulled a trick like a magician. He produced a basket of goodies. "This is our lunch. Go call your brother and sister." But Ifu didn't know. Her siblings were brewing an even bigger plan to help her overcome her inner demons. She was finally going to show the Empire's greatest power. But what happened next shocked everyone. Ifu was actually floating in midair, and her inseparable red swan necklace actually summoned a giant fiery red snake. "Ifu, my contractor." Ifu choked up at the sight of the giant snake. This was her only friend who had brought warmth to her cold life. Ifu hugged the snake and cried. She wanted to be with it. But the next second, the giant snake vanished. The Duke softly called the girl's name. Ifu finally snapped out of it. Her expression was one of relief. The old father looked on with comfort. Even though he didn't know who that giant snake was or what it did, at least his daughter was safe. But the joy didn't even last 3 seconds. Ifu suddenly fainted out of nowhere. Everyone frantically called out her name, but Ifu seemed to have entered a mystical space. She felt a sense of comfort like never before. Suddenly, a voice echoed, "Give it to me." The girl was confused. "Give you what?" "Give me a name." Right then, a shimmering black orb floated before Ifu's eyes. "Let me help you punish those sinners." Ifu spoke softly. "Then I'll call you Renee." As soon as she said it, thousands of miles away, the people in the temple who stole the Holy Spirit's power suddenly fell to their knees. Before they could figure out what was happening, the old man in charge realized the truth. He began to crawl away like a beaten dog. The other two felt it as well. The old man started wailing, "No, it can't just drain away like this." He even had the nerve to think that this power belonged to him. Meanwhile, back with Ifu, she was already surrounded by a holy light. The father seemed to sense something was up. He quickly ordered his deputy to prepare to head back. The deputy was a bit confused at first. The father quickly explained, "If they see this light, everyone will know Ifu is here." The older sister couldn't stay still. The father looked deeply worried. There was only one explanation for this situation. Ifu had summoned the Holy Spirit of the moon. Ifu slowly opened her eyes. The soft moonlight gently lowered her to the ground. A butterfly with strange, beautiful patterns fluttered its wings and flew toward her until it landed lightly in her hand. The girl was both surprised and delighted. "Great Holy Spirit." And the butterfly actually spoke. "We finally meet, my dear guardian." But the girl said her only guardian was that giant snake. Back then, it wasn't time for us to meet yet. The butterfly took flight. "My precious guardian. For you, I could crush everything in this world." Ifu suddenly remembered what her mother once said. The world ruled by the moon is cold and cruel, so people must be careful. Now the girl understood her mother's true meaning. The cold and cruel moonlight Wasn't it talking about the holy spirit of the moon? The girl asked cautiously. Will you crush me? Don't worry, child. You've done nothing wrong in my eyes. Not now, and definitely not ever. But the girl was still very confused. The Great Spirit saw through her thoughts. Rest easy. Your mother loved you until her very last breath. Really? Of course. So, let go of all this painful past. Ifu burst into tears hearing that. She remembered the good times with her mother. And then, the giant snake appeared again. Don't worry, child. We are with you. The Great Spirit, who had just promised to protect her, was suddenly ready to kill the old father. And all because the father had prepared a surprise. The two holy spirits appeared instantly. How dare you threaten our child? Before Ifu could react, the old father was already getting double-teamed. It's not like that. Ifu stood in front of her father with open arms. Just as she was about to speak, the old father spoke up. I would never do anything to hurt my daughter. I only want to cherish and protect her. He reached out his hand. Ifu stood there, frozen. It was the first time she'd heard her father use that tone. The two guardian spirits seemed to realize he meant no harm. They nodded slightly. Let's go. Let's head inside. This was the room where the father had once destroyed the altar. Back then, he never imagined a day like this would come. And just moments ago, he was still feeling down. But the second he opened the door, all his worries vanished into thin air. The place had been turned into a log cabin. Every single brick and wooden beam was modeled exactly after the cabin where she once lived with her mother. Seeing his daughter's reaction, the old father felt pretty proud of himself. I figured you might miss this place, so I had it specially built for you. But he didn't stop there. He had every bathroom in the manor remodeled like this. Now you can enjoy a bath in peace, no matter where you are. Ifu was both shocked and touched. She lunged forward and gave her father a big kiss. But the next second, she kicked him right back out because she simply couldn't wait to enjoy her time there. The maid was ready and raring to go. She was dying to give the young lady a good scrub. But then, she noticed something strange. My lady, your body. The staff quickly called for the doctor. Under the anxious gaze of the whole family, the doctor announced some unbelievable news. The young lady's injuries seemed to have healed completely overnight. It was as if she had never been hurt at all. The father rushed forward to check. He looked closely, and it took a long time to believe the doctor was telling the truth. The twins were over the moon. Even the maids were moved to tears. It truly is a miracle. Just yesterday, her body was still in terrible shape. Then, the Holy Spirit of the Moon appeared in the air. The father caught on instantly. It seems the Great Spirit has healing powers too. The little butterfly snorted. Did you think I could only protect Ifu? Renee, was it you who healed me? Of course. I'd do anything for you. Ifu was even more confused. Why didn't the other guardian spirit heal her? Because the Holy Spirit of the Sun lacks healing abilities. But the Moon Spirit is different. The healthier the guardian is, the stronger the spirit's power becomes. So, helping Ifu recover was only natural. While they were sharing a sweet moment, the doctor voiced his curiosity. Excuse me, may I ask a few questions about Ifu? Who are you? Why should I answer you? The doctor introduced himself very respectfully. The spirit dropped its hostile intent. I suppose it's fine. After all, your attitude is much better than that guy's. The brothers were stunned. The strongest man in the empire was just that guy to the spirit. Then they started making their own little plans. Looks like we'll have to get on the spirit's good side if we want to play with our sister. That said, the two of them began to introduce themselves with great respect. The Great Spirit was actually quite friendly with the children. The doctor and the father watched in envy. It was a world where only the old father ended up getting hurt. After enduring 3 lifetimes of pain, the girl was told it was all by divine decree. Ifu stared with innocent eyes. She originally thought her reincarnation was a curse, but reuniting with her family and meeting the Great Spirit made her realize it might not be a curse after all. Ifu wanted to know more. But Renee said that was as far as it goes. She had to keep the god's secrets. But seeing the little one's disappointed face, she quickly changed her tune. Well, it's not like I can't say anything. I can tell you all about myself. But ultimately, the reason you could summon me is because your state of mind has changed. Ifu was puzzled. In the past, you only thought about giving up. But now, you hold a grudge against those people. In the future, you will challenge them. Ifu couldn't help but feel a chill. That was the past she least wanted to remember. And now she was told she would have to challenge them. But don't be afraid. Renee added, I will become your sword. Can I really do it? Can I punish the bad people like my mother did? As long as you want to. You definitely can. Ifu was stunned. The two guardians also cheered her on. But Renee also warned her. While punishing sinners is your right, it isn't the entirety of your life. We'd much rather see you happy. Recalling every moment since she came home and the family that carefully protected her, Ifu nodded. I understand. I won't think like that anymore. I'll definitely work toward being happy. Ifu happily hugged the two guardians. Don't be afraid. Child, we'll work hard for you too. Seeing the girl cheer up, the two guardians were deeply relieved. Late that night, the father quietly went to Ifu's door. His usually cold face now showed a hint of worry. Thinking back to earlier, he had repeatedly warned Ifu not to leave the duke's estate for now, because everyone saw the light when you summoned the spirit. To ensure your safety, this is the only way for now. So, do I have to stay here forever? Only until you have enough power to protect yourself. Ifu nodded excitedly. Then I'll get strong enough right here at home. When that time comes, it'll be my turn to protect you all. Hearing this, The doting father felt his heart melt with joy. But despite those sweet words, some people were already growing restless in reality. They began to fight over the Great Spirit's ownership. Though he trusted His Majesty to handle it, he was willing to give everything for Ifu. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital, a well-dressed minister was giving a heated speech. Your Majesty, since a new guardian has been born, the empire should take on the responsibility of protecting them. The emperor uncle sneered. How hypocritical. But he didn't want to expose them just yet. Another noble stood up. The guardian would certainly have a better life in the capital. I suggest we take the Great Spirit under our wing and help them grow. One after another, they stood up, spouting nothing but hypocritical nonsense. The uncle's eyes were full of hidden meaning. Then, an old monk stood up. Since they can summon the spirit, then the guardian must be old enough to handle some trouble. The uncle was slightly surprised. Could he actually be sincere? But a second later, he saw through it all. Because the man who craved the spirit's power most, Duke Will, had finally spoken. Even though the emperor doted on the girl, he surprisingly agreed with the crowd to take her away. However, just before, the uncle still adored Ifu. He had even prepared 1,314 carriages full of gifts for her. Since everyone is in agreement, the empire will protect the new generation of Great Spirit and its guardian. The old geezer beside him looked triumphant. If there are no objections, that will be all for today. The hall immediately erupted in noise. Your Majesty, haven't we found the guardian yet? The uncle acted completely unbothered. I said we would protect the guardian. I never said I would bring them back here. The crowd started buzzing with discussion again, but the emperor wouldn't indulge them. The light appeared within the duke's territory. So, the task of protection will be left to the duke. Of course, if you really want to protect the spirit, you're welcome to raise an army and go to the duke's estate yourselves. The crowd suddenly fell silent with hesitation. Though they craved the spirit's power, the duke, known as the empire's strongest, was certainly no pushover. One minister tried to push further, but the look in the emperor's eyes gave him his answer. After scaring the man off, the uncle sighed. Don't think I don't know what you're all plotting. But since you asked so sincerely, I'll be kind enough to let you know. The person whose power you covet is actually the biological daughter of the previous guardian and the current duke. The old geezer's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Then he dropped a final ultimatum. One more thing. That girl is also my niece. If anyone wants to touch her, just try me. The hall instantly fell deathly silent. Meanwhile, at the duke's estate, the butler was reporting the good news to the duke. The servants have all heard that the lady can summon the Great Spirit. I'm so glad. What others only achieve at 13. Our young lady did at age 7. But the duke didn't look happy at all. It's not necessarily a good thing that so many people know. The butler seemed to sense the duke's hesitation. The staff wants to throw a surprise party for the lady. Don't worry, sir. The party will be held right here in the manor, in the Lion's Hall. Plus, 2 holy spirits are protecting her. The father hesitated. The Lion's Hall. That was where he and Luo Jie got married. After thinking it over, he agreed. Just then, there was an urgent knock at the door. My lord. Urgent news from the border. It's from the uncle. He says he's dealt with those in the capital who were targeting Ifu. Also, the Iron couple is on their way here. But the duke still couldn't let his guard down, because people like that will only keep coming. The messenger was thrilled to hear the Irons were coming. That's great. Looks like we aren't alone in this anymore. The duke continued reading the letter. It seems Iron isn't the only one supporting us. Lady Vieira is also about to arrive. The duke's face lit up instantly. Meanwhile, Ifu was excitedly introducing her friend to the 2 spirits. This is Mr. Rabbit. He's so soft and warm to hug. Suddenly, someone called her name. She looked up. It was her father. Ifu ran toward him excitedly. She took a leap and dove into his arms. How were your lessons today? All done. The teacher said I'm a fast learner. Then I won't be the only one telling stories anymore. You'll be able to tell me stories soon. Ifu, the very thought of it seemed hard to believe. But then she got excited again. In that case, I'll work even harder. The father looked on with pride. He pulled out a dirty, worn-out book. This is a reward for doing so well today. Ifu looked confused. She'd received plenty of luxury gifts before, but now her father was handing her an old, tattered book. The daughter of a duke, used to luxury, now had to deal with this old thing. A moment ago, she was quite puzzled and even a bit disappointed. Is Dad just phoning it in now? But one sentence made her eyes sparkle. This was your mother's book. It explains how to work with the Great Spirit. Not just the girl. Even the 2 spirits leaned in to take a look. Your mother knew future guardians would need this. So she took the time to write it down. Ifu hugged the book tight, treasuring it. Still, the messy handwriting was a bit of an eyesore. Even guardians don't always have the best penmanship. Finally, the 2 spirits crowded around the book. We should probably study this too. The father patted her shoulder. Look. It also shows how to fight alongside the Great Spirit while using a sword. This drawing is so pretty. The father beamed. That's because I drew it. You wouldn't even understand your mom's drawings. Also, I'll be personally teaching you swordsmanship. Feel free to ask if you have any questions. Ifu was overjoyed. She could finally learn how to use a sword. Then, she asked another question. Is there anything I need to prepare? Just study the book your mom left you. And listen to Dr. Shirley. That'll be enough. Ifu was a bit confused, but the doctor said I'm already fully healed. The duke's expression turned awkward. Just listen to me. Neither the doctor nor I would ever hurt you. Don't worry, Dad. I'll be good. The father lifted her up high. I knew you were my good girl. How about I tuck you in for a nap? The 2 of them walked happily toward the bedroom. As Ifu was drifting off, the duke whispered, Ifu, someone's here to see you. Want to meet them? Suddenly, Ifu's mood shifted completely. She instinctively clung to her father. He noticed her unease. Don't be scared. She knew your mother. Ifu asked cautiously. She's the one who made your mother's clothes. Every single piece your mother wore was handmade by Lady Vieira. Ifu was still a little afraid, but her father promised to stay with her. The two spirits appeared instantly. Don't worry, we'll be right there with you. Ifu finally relaxed. In the drawing room, a lady with extraordinary poise and style was waiting. Surprisingly, she was incredibly nervous too. She was even pacing restlessly. Will Luo Jie's daughter like me? She's been through so much. Poor thing. Then, the door clicked open. Lady Vieira froze. Coming into view was little Ifu, clutching her father's sleeve. Hello, lady. I'm Lady Vieira. I run a boutique in the capital. You can just call me Vieira. Ifu's eyes went wide. A love for pretty clothes seems to be second nature for girls. But Ifu's next words caught Vieira completely off guard. My family fell from grace, and I got into some serious trouble because of it. It was your mother who saved me. I was instantly captivated by her heroic spirit. Vieira grew more excited as she spoke. From then on, I started making clothes for your mother. Eve gave an awkward little laugh. A moment later, Vieira knelt down. My lady. Starting today, allow me to be the one to make your clothes. Eve was a bit unsure of what to do, but Vieira remained full of enthusiasm. Don't you worry, my lady. I'll make sure you look more beautiful than anyone else. Seemed moved by Vieira's sincerity. Then, do I need to wear fancy clothes too? Not necessarily, but I will create what suits you best. What fits right is always the best. Then I'll leave it to you. With that, Eve reached out her tiny hand. Vieira was thrilled at the gesture. My lady, I look forward to serving you. That night, Eve flopped spread-eagled on her bed. She sniffed here and there. It was the wooden tub her father had specially prepared for her. The scent of jade left her smelling like fresh forest greenery. But just then, the great spirits appeared. Eve, did you have a good day today? I did. I have the books my mother left me, and I got to meet Vieira. Eve spoke while savoring the memory of today's food. Finally, she didn't forget to thank the two great spirits. I feel so safe with you guys around. But the great serpent lowered its head. After a long silence, it asked in a solemn tone, Eve, don't you want to tell your family about your past life? Eve was stunned. I thought I wasn't allowed to talk about that. The two spirits nodded silently. That's right. Every world has its rules, and those living here must not know how the rules shift. Eve was confused again. In that case, wasn't she outside of the rules? You have crossed the rules, and you must remember, you must never tell these things to anyone. However, the great spirit's tone softened. Keeping it all bottled up. We worry it will be very hard on you. Eve shook her little head. It's okay. I wasn't planning on telling anyone anyway. Seeing how heartbreakingly mature the girl was, the great spirit coiled its body. I'm sorry. Eve was a little puzzled. Why are you apologizing to me? It's fine. As long as you stay by my side, everything will be all right. Meanwhile, outside the Duke's mansion, a handsome young boy sat in a carriage. Eric, are you okay? The boy looked up. I'm fine. His mother sounded a bit reproachful. You can barely even walk, yet you insisted on coming all this way. Eric gave an awkward smile. The woman sighed. Well, I suppose it's fine. Take this chance to meet with her. Just because the girl learned how to shake hands, her old man had prepared a surprise party. Not only did the whole household spend weeks busy for her, but all sorts of nobles were invited to attend. At this moment, the little guest of honor was still clueless, casually eating in her father's arms. She was munching on cookies with both hands, and then chugged some juice like a total beast. Once she was full, she let out a thunderous burp. Her older brother and sister were stunned. What kind of kid eats that much in one sitting? Her father seemed to overhear their whispering. He enjoyed wiping the girl's mouth, totally unfazed by the twins' shock. A good appetite is a blessing. Exactly, Eve agreed. She then started ringing her bell. Turns out she was already thinking about dessert. But the little maid was acting very strange today. She dropped off the cake and ran, whispering constantly to the people nearby. While eating, Eve asked, are they that busy today? Her father, afraid of blowing the surprise, said, it's just spring cleaning day. The twins on the side were also ready to go. Eve, do you want to play dress up? Eve stared with big eyes, looking confused, but she didn't turn down her brother's invite. They went into an incredibly grand walk-in closet. Vieira and Sherry had been waiting there for a long time. These are all clothes made just for you. Go ahead and pick one you like. But Eve was puzzled again. If they're all mine, why do I have to choose? Sherry chuckled at her innocent remark. The one that fits you best is the right one. Eve nodded, though she didn't quite get it. You'd think taking care of little Eve was enough work. But her father wasn't making things easy either. A man his age, and he's actually acting shy. This feels a bit awkward. I haven't worn something like this in forever. Vieira looked like she wanted to smack some sense into him. The twins were the most chill about it. They walked into the designated area with total confidence, just as they met up with their father. Right then, a tiny, sweet voice called out Daddy, making everyone turn around. A second later, they were completely starstruck. The scene shifted. Eve was happily waving her hand. The twins' eyes instantly turned into hearts. They were dying to rush over and squeeze their little sister. But her father was faster than anyone. He scooped little Eve right up. You look absolutely stunning today. Eve was beaming. But she didn't forget to compliment her siblings and her dad. Well then, let's go. Eve was confused once more. Where are we going? Suddenly, the door swung open with a bang. The butler gave a casual-sounding cough, signaling that it was time. Presenting Lady Eve. Inside the grand hall, everyone erupted in cheers and applause. Little Eve stared at it all in a daze. It didn't seem to sink in yet that all of this was for her. Congratulations on successfully summoning the Great Spirit. In an instant, memories of her past came flooding back. How many times had she been beaten because of this worthless thing? Don't you dare try to summon a great spirit again. She and her spirit had endured day after miserable day. Tears began to stream down Eve's face. She never imagined she could ever be this happy. Her father was the first to notice something was wrong. He worried he had messed something up. But Eve threw her arms around him. Thank you, and thank you to my brother, my sister, and everyone for everything you've prepared for me. After a long while, little Eve finally pulled away from her father, her eyes all red and puffy from crying. The twins couldn't stop smiling. But just then, a voice broke the heartwarming moment, announcing Count and Countess Elant. And what's it like to fall in love at first sight with a childhood friend? From the moment the boy entered, Eve couldn't take her eyes off him. A second later, she rushed right over to him. The boy was surprised, but kept his gentlemanly poise. My name is Eric. It's a pleasure to meet you. Lady Eve, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. Eric's parents were stunned. That sounded a bit too forward. I hear them talk about you all the time. But little Eve didn't care about manners. She just reached out. A faint blush crept across Eric's cheeks, while Eve just stared at him. Eric had something he'd been wanting to say. Lady Eve, you've been through so much. He spoke while holding her hand, followed by a deep bow. Eve seemed moved by his kindness. But her father and the twins weren't exactly thrilled. After all, that punk had been holding her hand for way too long. The next moment, glistening teardrops rolled onto her dress. Eve was crying once again. Eric froze. She had just finished crying, and now she was sobbing all over again. Even she didn't know why. Her father sensed something unusual. By then, Eve had already buried herself in his arms. Kids' moods really do change in a heartbeat. After a bit of comforting, Eve was back to normal. Feeling better? Much better. But my head hurts a bit from all the crying. As she spoke, she leaned her head casually on Eric's shoulder. Why do I feel so comfortable around you? Eric smiled, enjoying her presence. But he told her the reason anyway. Because I'm a spirit master. As he spoke, water ripples appeared out of thin air on his hand. It's just a shame my body is so weak. This is all I can manage. Eve watched everything in awe, but then she thought of something odd. Why do you keep calling me lady? That's not my name. Eric looked confused, but the twins jumped right in. What my sister means is, she only likes people calling her by her name. They put a lot of emphasis on the words my sister. Ever since Eve started getting cozy with this white-haired kid, they had been seriously annoyed. Then can I call you Eve? Of course. The twins were fuming by now. But the two just kept on getting to know each other. The more I look at this guy, the more he bugs me. The two quickly came up with a plan. Eve, you're the star of the party. Everyone's waiting to see you dance. Eve got excited. Can I dance with Eric then? Lucky for them, Eric wasn't feeling well. Otherwise, who knows what the twins would have tried next. While Eve was happily dancing, Eric was clearly struggling to hide something. I know what you're hiding, kid. But since Eve likes you, I'll let it slide for now. Eric took it to heart, but the old man still laid down the law. Remember this, if the day ever comes that my daughter doesn't like you, I won't go easy on you. Little did he know that one day would take a lifetime. The father joined Eve's dance. Seeing how close they were, Eric couldn't help but smile. But a moment later, he looked down. Maybe it's because things have started to change. She just fell for her little friend yesterday, only to find out today that he's gravely ill. The party finally ended, and little Eve let out a long yawn. But just as she was about to drift off in someone's arms, she suddenly woke up. I don't want to sleep. I still want to play with Eric. Eric wanted to say something, but he kept quiet under a certain someone's fierce glare. It's okay. We'll be staying here for a few days. You can play with him tomorrow. Eve waved a reluctant goodbye and fell asleep in her father's arms. In the middle of the night, Eve's door was quietly cracked open. The fluttering curtains couldn't hide the visitor's beauty. You've come. The night sky has grown so bright. The voice came from a glowing orb in front of him. You look very pale. Can your body really handle living in such a cold place? Eric coughed twice. I can manage. Luckily, the source of the pain is gone. The glowing orb suddenly flickered. Didn't you say you don't regret what you did? Then why are you still in so much pain? Eric clenched his fists and stayed silent. Because I want to be the one to save her. She wants to smile like that. The light seemed to see through the boy's resolve. As they say, love makes you worry. Besides, she's very happy right now. I know. The next morning at breakfast, the girl was yawning, but still remembered to ask where Eric was. This made the twins super jealous again. The count sensed the tension. Eric has a fever and is resting in his room. Eric is sick, but he was totally fine yesterday. Eve wanted to go visit him right away, while the twins shared a knowing look. Don't you think it's weird? You bet. Even if great spirits and spirit masters hit it off, it shouldn't be like this. Our sister used to be so afraid of everything. Her father was also deep in thought. Even if they're both just kids, and even if great spirits naturally gravitate towards spirit masters, this is still too much. I should be the only one she's that close to. Looking at Eve, who couldn't stop worrying about Eric even while eating, her father suddenly had an idea. Meanwhile, Eric was still fighting his illness. This child has always been physically weak. It might be because of the new environment. Dr. Sherry caught on to the key point. You said he's been sick before, right? Can you give me more details? The Countess seemed a bit hesitant, but so as not to delay treatment. She told the whole story. It started when he was 7. Overnight, He began having trouble breathing, accompanied by a high fever of 116 degrees. Despite such clear symptoms, no one could diagnose the cause. Later, we suspected it was due to the spirit energy within him. We just watched him, teetering on the edge of life and death for 2.5 years. But here's the weird part. A few days ago, his condition suddenly improved. Just then, Eric sat up abruptly. Little Eve quickly climbed to his bedside and whispered, "Don't be sick. He should be out of the woods now. He just needs plenty of rest." Eve locked onto the phrase "out of the woods." Is Eric going to be okay? Then she patted his head and said, "Don't worry, Eric. I know you'll be able to run around again soon." A 7-year-old boy was in a coma for 18 years. When he woke up, he immediately asked for a girl he'd never met. "Eve has been taken away. Please, you have to save her." At first, his parents thought it was just delirium. But after investigating, they found out it was actually true. The Emperor uncle heard the Count's report and was totally shocked. But the situation didn't allow for any hesitation. He grabbed the Count's hand. "As Emperor, it's difficult for me to act openly, so I'm counting on you. Please, save this child." The Count's eyes widened in disbelief. It was the first time he'd seen the Emperor so desperate. The Count set out immediately and rescued Eve under the cover of night. The truth began to surface bit by bit. Eric said he heard the voices of spirits. The child of the Guardian was suffering over there. After hearing the whole story, the Duke remained silent for a long time. He never expected the Great Spirits and the Spirit Masters to have such a connection. But the Count and his wife were losing their cool. The Duke had investigated for all these years, yet he was so calm after finding out. "When do you plan on returning to your estate?" "In 3 days. We want to see His Majesty at the capital first. Then leave Eric with us." "What? We'd love to, but is that really okay with you?" Thinking about Eve's attitude toward Eric, the old man was a bit jealous. But since Eve finally had a playmate, he couldn't bear to separate them. At twilight, the Duke went to Eric's room. As soon as he entered, he saw Eve napping on the boy's lap. Before the Duke could even say a word, Eric spoke up to apologize. "Forgive my rudeness. I should have greeted you as soon as I woke up. But Eve is sleeping on my lap, so it's fine," the old man said as he leaned in. "She's really out cold, isn't she? Because she heard I could stay here long term. She was so happy she read me fairy tales." The old man was fuming inside. "I haven't even gotten that kind of treatment yet." Eric's survival instinct kicked in. "She read them to me, just for practice, so she could read them perfectly for you, Your Grace. I heard from your parents. You're the one who told them Eve was captured and where she was being held." Eric was taken aback, judging by his previous attitude. "Is he here to interrogate me?" Though he was nervous, he didn't dare hesitate. "That is correct." But the Duke's sudden "thank you" caught the boy completely off guard. "I'm ashamed to say, I didn't even know Roger had given birth to Eve. If you hadn't indirectly saved her, we might have lost her forever. I'm so sorry. If only I were a bit stronger, I could have rescued her even sooner." The old man gently disagreed. "It's not your fault. It's the fault of those animals. Besides, Eve clearly likes you a lot now." As he spoke, the father gently lifted the little one and pulled her once more into a warm embrace. But just as he was about to leave, the father noticed something different about the boy. His whole body was trembling, as if he were about to burst into tears at any second. The father gave a soft chuckle, stepped forward, and gently patted Eric's head. By now, Eric was already moved to tears. Perhaps it was because of Eve's affection for him, or perhaps it was the Duke's final seal of approval. "Get some good rest, and don't stay sick." Who would have thought a man as cold as the Duke could care for someone else, especially someone who might one day steal his daughter's heart? Most people give gold or jewels as gifts, but the Emperor's gift was a whole person. Eve was completely baffled. She thought the woman was just the one delivering the gifts. "My lady, I am the gift." The woman pointed specifically to the red ribbon she wore, saying with a face full of excitement, "This means I'm the gift." The father looked speechless, but Eve was thrilled. So people can be gifts too. But thinking it over carefully, Eve really did need a personal guard. Besides, this woman clearly looked like someone you shouldn't mess with. In fact, she held a prestigious title, Captain of the Emperor's Personal Guard. But more importantly, she was Roger's, meaning Eve's mother's #1 fan. "Don't worry, my lady. I won't let anyone hurt you." The father watched them with a gratified smile. Having someone like her guarding Eve was a huge relief. Remember when Eve used to hide whenever she saw a stranger? By the next day, the two were already fast friends in the garden. The passing headmaid, however, was totally horrified. In the guard's hand was a 1,000-year-old ginseng that the Duke had been cultivating for over 100 years. Little Eve had no idea. "Is it very expensive? Try some, my lady." The guard stuffed a piece into Eve's mouth. "It's sweet." As they spoke, they pulled up another one. This kind of herb doesn't just restore stamina, it boosts overall vitality. Little Eve suddenly had a bold idea. The two then headed straight to Eric's room. Eric looked overwhelmed. "Camille says these are good for you. Quick, eat them all." The boy looked at the bed full of priceless ginseng, lost in thought. The father looked at the Baron, dug up garden, clearing his throat. Only the old gardener's heart was truly broken that day. To receive such a precious gift is an honor. "But I can't bring myself to eat them." Eve looked very serious. "No, if you don't eat them, you won't get better. And if you don't get better, you can't play with me." Just then, the twins burst through the door. "We knew you'd be here. Our sister has to play with us today." Camille tactfully stepped aside as Eve pouted. "No, I want to play with Eric." The twins looked like they'd been struck by lightning. "Dearest sister, have you already forgotten your big brother and sister?" Eric immediately played the good boy card. "Maybe you should spend a day with them instead?" Until the sister used her ultimate trump card. "How about I teach you swordsmanship today?" Eric wanted to protest, but the brother cut him off. Since the young master is unwell, he should stay in his room and rest well. The sister added with mock concern, "Yes, it would be terrible if he got hurt further." With that, they hurried Eve out of the room. Meanwhile, the Count and Countess arrived at the Emperor's palace. "Have you seen Eve yet? Is she doing well? Was my gift delivered?" "Of course. Camille put on the ribbon and went straight to Eve. Eve needs someone like that to protect her now. But honestly, you knew about Roger and Eve. Why didn't you tell me sooner? The Emperor let out a long sigh. It was all because of that greedy old man. The Count froze in place. Does that mean your execution of the former Emperor was because